Welcome. In this video, we watch 1. How satellite service works and how everyone was deceived. 2. How air internet service works on airplanes. 3. Gravity fails to work on a ball. 4. The impossibility of a Qibla on a spherical Earth. 5. Chilean eclipse on 3 July 2019 is strong evidence that the eclipse is not caused by the moon. 6. How a permanent day is formed with a permanent sun in the south and north. 7. Proof that the moon is not spherical and that it is a horizontal spot moving in the sky. 8. A very simple method that explains to you the mechanism of reflection. 9. How night and day move accurately throughout the year. 10. How eclipses and lunar eclipses on a flat Earth. 11. The mechanism of the southern stars and proof that they cannot be on a spherical Earth. Very important note. Reply to the telescope allegation. Of course, many of you will mention the telescope and say, we can overcome the distance using the telescope. But the truth is completely different. First, you must know some information about the telescope. In order to use the telescope, it must be well fixed on a fixed object. If you put the telescope on a moving object, you will not be able to observe through it at all. If the telescope is fixed on a flying plane, it cannot be used. If the telescope is fixed on a moving car, it cannot be observed through it. If the telescope shakes, the image disappears. This is the biggest evidence that the Earth is fixed and does not move, because if it were moving, the telescope would not work. Secondly, you think that the telescope can see millions of light years away because you believe that what is in the sky is millions of light years away from you. To know the truth, you must know the telescope's real distance on Earth. We have all seen the Burj Khalifa in Dubai photographed with a telescope from a distance of 100 kilometers. The tower appeared from this distance during the day and almost disappeared. So, the telescope's range is not as you think, zrania, but rather very limited, and helps you bring distant objects closer to see them with greater accuracy. We understand from this that the transparency of air is not absolute, and that the greater the distance, the less transparency until it becomes completely non-existent. Before we begin, you should know how far you can see on this map. You will notice that I have placed small dots close together. These dots indicate how far you can see, and beyond this small distance, you cannot see anything. Consider this dot to be a half sphere fixed above your head that moves with you while you are on the ground. You cannot in any way see what is beyond this sphere or what is outside its borders. To make you believe this, I will give you a very simple example. There is intense lightning at night in some cities, but you cannot see it from other nearby cities. From here, we understand that everything you see in the sky is only in this point or hemisphere designated for you, and part of the sky is reflected on it, and everything in the sky has no effect on the Earth except the sun. The sun is the only one that has a clear effect on life in all its forms, because of the heat that it emits, and we cannot say that it is reflected on these points. After studying and thinking, many things became clear to me, and I want to explain them to you. First, everyone thinks that day is caused by sunlight, and that night is caused by shadow, and that twilight is caused by the sun. The matter is completely different. Day is an independent substance that revolves in the universe and leads to the appearance of daylight on Earth. Day has different properties than night, and one of its properties is that it is energy, and everyone knows that as we can get energy from daylight, twilight is stable on the entire day, but we only see it when the sun's focus is weak. When the day exceeds a certain limit, it interacts with a certain length of twilight and forms a focus for the sun inside each hemisphere or point on the map. Because the day revolves with the night, its effect on each point changes. The more it increases, the stronger the focus becomes, and its temperature rises and rises in its place. The day revolves, and at the same time, rises and falls. When the day rises higher, the area on the ground increases and covers a larger area. In this case, it is winter, and because it rose and the area exposed to light on the ground increased, the power of the day is less, and accordingly, the heat of the sun is less, and the height of the sun is less. And the opposite is when it decreases. As for the night, it is a negative energy, completely opposite to the day. The day reveals the sun, and the night covers it. As for the night, it is a negative energy, completely opposite to the day. The day reveals the sun, and the night covers it. The night covers the sun only because it is the only one that has a focus of day and twilight. This explains how the night is in some places close to the sun at a time when the sun appears at greater distances. If you apply these things to the model of Walter Bislin's, the model is ideal, but it lacks some additions. First, the eclipse and the lunar eclipse, according to what I mentioned, the day reveals the sun, and the night covers it. There are small and separate parts of the night that revolve in the sky, and when they are at a low level and when they pass in front of the reflected focus, they extinguish it, and the eclipse occurs, and darkness is reflected back to us until it passes, and the matter returns to its previous state. As for the eclipse, because night does not cover the moon, it only passes under it and casts its shadow on it, and the eclipse occurs until it passes. Secondly, add the stars of the southern stars, and we will get to know them with an ideal model of them. It was said that I know the model Walter Bislin's. I was busy making a model for the movement of night and day, and I actually made a 3D model based on the maps of night and day available on the internet, because they are correct and cannot be manipulated relatively, because each person enters them and sees his place, if it is day or night. And indeed, I implemented the equinoxes with an identical model, and then my dear friend, Sister Lena Biss, sent me the complete. This is the dish used. The satellite wave is reflected on it and gathers on the LNB, as you can see in the picture. We must understand a very important piece of information, that the satellite rays are reflected, and not, as they say, that they are not reflected. And if they are not reflected, they cannot be received. Secondly, if there is a barrier in front of the dish, you cannot receive the wave because it is reflected on the barrier, and it will not reach the dish, the stratosphere layer above the Earth, by 50 kilometers. If there is a satellite at an altitude of 35,000 kilometers. This means that the wave reaches this layer and bounces back to the satellite. The wave will not reach the ground. The subject, in brief, is that points were arranged in the stratosphere as in the picture, and each point was called a satellite with a certain degree. The studio transmits through its own dish. The wave reaches the stratosphere and bounces back to the ground, in all directions. The broadcast piece in the studio is not compatible with the pieces installed on our floors in homes. There is only one piece compatible with it, with a party whose wave is received and rebroadcast, with a piece compatible with the dishes we have and we can receive from it. In the drawing, I explained that the beam coming out of the studio's broadcast is red, because it cannot be received on our dishes, and is rebroadcast with the other piece that is compatible with our dishes in green. In-flight internet service on airplanes. This image shows the in-flight internet service on airplanes from the website of the telecommunications company STC. by placing a Wi-Fi signal receiver at the bottom of the plane and receiving from communication towers along the way. The matter is clear and does not need words. Gravity. As shown in the picture, gravity depends on the length of the radius of the ball, and water does not fall from any direction on the circumference of the ball. Because the radius is fixed, the force of attraction is equal from all directions. This is what everyone knows. But what if there is a flat area on the ball, for example, an orange from which part of the surface was cut, and the surface became completely flat? In this case, the closest point to the center of the ball will be the middle of the flat area, and when water is placed on it, it must collect completely at the center of the flat part. All the laws of gravity are broken. Remember that the area of the salt desert in Bolivia is completely flat and is 10,582 square kilometers. Even without it, the center of any flat body must be a point of accumulation of water. With an orange, it is ridiculous. Southern stars. This image is used by astronomers to prove that the Earth is spherical and cannot be flat. You will notice that they drew the shapes of the southern stars that appear in some cities, as is the order from left to right. Santiago, Johannesburg, Jakarta, Sydney, Papeete. And each group of stars is a specific symbol whose direction differs. I took a picture of the Sydney stars and put it on the flat Earth map. And I put the picture of Sydney on Sydney, and I made the picture rotate around the map so that every degree it rotates around. The axis rotates with it a degree around itself. You will notice a complete match for the shapes of the southern stars from one picture. And note that in order for the correct shapes to be formed, the stars must rotate twice. And in the spherical theory, the stars are fixed because they are millions of light years away, and the movement is only apparent as a result of the Earth's rotation. Watch the video and see when the stars are placed on the ball, they cannot match. Reflection. A simple experiment you can do is to fix a light source on a glass plate. While you are moving and the light source is fixed, you will find the reflected focus moving with you wherever you move. This is what happens with the moon and stars. This is a map of night and day, from the location of night and day, in a 24-hour sun day in the south. You will notice that they are using a flat map and not a ball, because the movement cannot be applied to a ball. You will also notice that the sun is in the middle of the map, so that it is in the north of New Zealand and North America. They have a sun. How can the sun be above and below the ball at the same time? As you can see, the sun cannot be seen in the north and south at the same time on a globe. The side facing the Kaaba on the globe is such that all directions lead to it 360 degrees. As you can see, the night covers only Australia and Antarctica, and this is not possible on the ball. As you can see, this cannot be applied to the globe because one half of the globe must be dark and the other half daytime. As you can see, if Asia and Africa appeared together, they would occupy half the area of the globe. So how would the Americas appear?